What's the big secret of the Zohar? That's the question. It's a special book. Truly, it's a special book. It's a book that completely talks about the correction of a person. Part of it is also called the corrections of the Zohar, but the entire Zohar speaks about the corrected society that works in this connected network between people, that this network is called a soul. Everyone's talking about the neshama, and each person thinks that his soul is what he feels, but it's just a beastly soul. And a real soul is a system, is one system for everyone, in which we're all connected to one another. The system is truly hidden from us. We don't feel the connection between us. And we need to discover this system. Therefore, the book is hidden, is talking about this hidden connection between us. And it begins to be as a book for discovering, a means for discovering this connection. And then that hidden situation becomes revealed. And this is how we go from the hidden world to the revealed world. And then we will feel like you feel how much your relatives are close to you or far from you, that there's a system, some sort of connection. If we imagine to ourselves this network of connection between us, that we're all connected in love, connection, friendship, and the correct relations and mutuality, then the Book of Zohar describes it. It explains it. And also, when it explains it, its explanation is not understood to us because we're not connected. We're not positioned to it. We're in distance from it and in this oppositeness to one another. Therefore, we don't really understand what's written there. But to the extent that a person begins to correct how he relates to others and begins to discover this correct network between us that's mutual, friendly, then what's written in the Zohar starts to be for him revealed, because he sees that that's what the book is talking about. The correct relations, corrected, good relations between people. And therefore, this book is so holy. Holy means that it's different. It's really the opposite of our current nature, because we're all in our evil inclination, in our ego, that each of us only wants to see himself as greater than others, more successful, more profitable. That's our nature to begin with. Our evil inclination is what we're born with. And by our using the Book of Zohar to read, to understand, that we want to get close, bring ourselves closer to the book. It's like I'm taking this beautiful network and I want to put it into my corrupt network of my relations with the whole world. Just the opposite. I want to get into that same corrected system that the book is speaking of. Therefore, in the Book of Zohar, there's lots of strength. You read it in all kinds of special situations as a blessing, because if we begin to use these forces as a merit, if we use it to get closer to one another, then it really helps us. There's a description of the correct network in this book. So if I want to get into this network, even if I don't understand how it's built, because it's entirely talking about relations that aren't in my nature today. It's not in me. So how can we even think about it? If I first and foremost understand that I have no choice, like today we see that we have no choice, we need to get into the new system, the nice, good system that finally the nation of Israel, its destiny is to be one family. If in this manner I see our future, then the Book of Zohar begins to be a very powerful means for correcting man's nature, to make a person that's connected to others, that can be in love thy neighbor as thyself. Don't do unto others what you wouldn't want done to yourself. All of Israel are friends. To be in mutuality, mutual responsibility, mutual guarantee, to feel as one nation in one boat, that we have to be concerned that that boat, if someone's not being concerned, then everyone can drown in our ego, in this crazy sea of feelings, egoistic feelings that we're in this turbulent sea. It's a very strong book because it describes, it's a description of the Torah, that the whole Bible also speaks about it. The whole Torah also speaks of loving your fellow man, love thy neighbor as thyself, because that's a big law. The Zohar, the description of the 5 books of Torah, that's it. What is the book explaining? It's explaining all kinds of types of connections between us. What in the Torah is written in a different language, first of all. In Torah, it's talking in biblical language. And in the Zohar, it's in the language of Kabbalah, but it's just an external expression of that same attitude that the Torah demands between one another. The Torah comes to correct our hearts, each and every one of us, and also the Book of Zohar. It was written throughout the entire Bible. It used to be a very big book. What's left for us out of the entire Book of Zohar is just a small part of it. There's all kinds of parts that aren't connected to one another. We are aware of this. It comes to us from our history, how this book went through all kinds of things. This book is clear. It was already clear when the book was written that it's going to be hidden. It's in a situation that it's not being used, because the need for using the book has to be only at the end of Galut, of exile, that we begin to discover the correct connection between people, because the world is discovering that it has to be corrected, that it's in a crisis. The connections between people, relations, it's not just a crisis in economy or something, but rather the fact that we are we're discovering, beginning to discover today, that the problem is in man's nature, that this is actually the source of all the bad in the world, that in the world there's all good. We're the only ones that have an egoistic nature, and that's why we can't divide all the abundance between us. We can't live in security. We can arrange our lives in a pleasant manner that we'll have today, tomorrow, for our grandchildren, etc. So when we discover in the world this necessity, then the Book of Zohar also becomes revealed. Therefore, the use of the Book of Zohar today, I see that it's beginning to be more and more popular. I see it in people having courses among secular and synagogues. It's not like it was 30 or 40 years ago even, that this book was still it would awaken some fear in people, like warning, leave it on the shelf, maybe on some shelf. It'll be like a blessing on the home. It'll add value to the home, but they wouldn't use it. They wouldn't read it to try to understand it more. Nowadays, there's lessons from the Book of Zohar, more and more. We see that it comes from the people, also from the secular part, and also the religious part. There's like an inner demand, and there's no block between us and the Book of Zohar that we had through all the years of exile. It's because we feel that this book has to give us an answer. It's merit. It gives us special force that if we correct our hearts through it, if we have a good attitude to one another, then this book opens up. We begin to understand what network we're talking about, what attitude. There's all kinds of names, stories, and then through these interpretations and stories, I begin to understand what the book is speaking about, what forms of connection, relations. And these forms are called the upper world. Why the upper world? Because it's a network. What's our world? Our world is a connection between the 4 degrees, inanimate, animate, vegetative, speaking, from the single atoms to the molecules to a piece like our body, and the psychological situations, the relations between us and between everyone at all these levels, how they influence one another, how they're connected in one network. This is how the Book of Zohar speaks of this connection, but corrected, that the entire system reaches mutual completion. Mutual completion, the correct, comes through love. Love is the highest degree of participation. That I feel lackings, desires of my fellow man, and I'm prepared to fill them. I'm prepared to look out for the completion of each person, their passions, whatever they want, I'm prepared to give it. I only need what I need to exist. Allow me just to exist, and everything else I'm prepared to give my whole life to be part of, to be pleasantly living with everyone. This is the ideal situation. Through this current crisis, the nature is advancing us to this situation. And then the Book of Zohar is being revealed as a means through which we can change our nature from receiving to taking advantage, stealing, controlling, to the opposite, until we reach love, meaning merging, the good merging, mutual merging between everyone. And the book speaks of this is the final format we must reach from the side of nature. Just like we advance throughout our history, throughout evolution or development, we reached the egoistic development through many, many generations, thousands and thousands of years. We reached a state where today we want to get out of our ego. We see that it grew into a situation that we can no longer exist in. It started to show itself as the angel of death. And then we have to get rid of it. Otherwise, it's going to kill us. It's also written in the Zohar how this angel of death At the end of the sword, he gives us this drop of death. It's bitter, but we have no choice. We have to accept it. Otherwise, I don't feel that I'm alive. And how I transform the angel of death to a holy angel, transform the bad to good, only by changing the attitude between us. That's why the book was revealed in the last few dozen years. This wall was broken down between us and the Book of Zohar. Today we're starting to read it, to disseminate it, to sell it in all kinds of stores, to learn it, all kinds of courses. It doesn't matter how they explain it or study it. The main thing is that there is a connection to the source itself. And then, like kids, read stories, but grow up through this. And then gradually, I hope that humanity will discover it as quickly as possible, this special force that's in this book that can change us.